Are you a God-fearing man, Senator? That's such a strange phrase. I've always thought of God as a teacher, as a bringer of light, wisdom, and understanding. You see, I think what you really are afraid of is me.
You are now tuned in to Just My Thoughts. This Robert's around looking down from the mountaintop. Maybe trying to hear somewhere, but I still got that plug in my ear. This is that podcast with you.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dudes and dudettes, the sexy and not so sexy, big children and little. Hope you're staying safe out there. Hope you're washing your hands out there. The poetry dilemma. Or I could say my dilemma inside of poetry, or one of the dilemmas with poetry. I'm the novelist, author, poet Lamont Anthony Wright, aka Graffiti Bleu. Welcome to episode 2 of the restructured Just My Thoughts. And I really wanted to talk about the poetry of the dilemma of poetry. And what I mean the dilemma of poetry is art does as well as the state of human beings that are creating it. So I don't want to do this blog or podcast acting like there's some great crisis in the community. I think Mos Def said it best when he was asked, how is hip-hop doing? And he said, people talk about hip-hop like it's some mountain living in the hillside. Hip-hop is doing how we're doing. If we're smoked out, then hip-hop is going to be smoked out. If we're scared of an epidemic virus, then hip-hop is going to be scared of an epidemic virus. And I'm saying the same thing about poetry. Poetry, or the state of poetry, is doing as well as we are. However, I figured I'd share my thoughts just for just a little education and things I wish I had known that I had to kind of learn on my own as far as the realm of poetry. Let's talk infrastructure is my first point. In acting, in some of the arts like acting, there's sort of an infrastructure, right? So what do actors do? What is the knee-jerk reaction response when an actor is trying to figure out what they should do to break through and get roles for movies, television, or theater? Move to New York, move to Los Angeles, work in a theater company, get your big break by somebody seeing you, get an agent, do commercials, you get a big break, you get possibly a TV role, a movie role, small part, perhaps, and that small part gets you attention. Maybe you are a scene stealer to a big movie, blockbuster, and you're the next whoever, right? Idris Elba, Denzel, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and so the chances of you reaching that success might be astronomically low, but there's still an infrastructure. Let's take comedy. There's a comedy club circuit. You work the circuit. You're funny, hopefully. Somebody sees you, you get discovered, you get an agent. Small clubs turn into bigger clubs. Maybe it parlays into an HBO special, a Netflix special, or what have you. Maybe an album, maybe streams, but there's still an infrastructure. The chances of you beating every other comic out there to be the funniest woman or man on the planet might be astronomically low, but there's still an infrastructure. The same thing can be said about music acts, singers, rappers. You shop your demo, you sell stuff out of the trunk. Anyway, you get what I'm saying. There's an infrastructure. Poetry is a little different. I don't know if we can say the coffee houses are an infrastructure. Some might argue, okay, well, what about the slam events? There is an infrastructure, and you would be right. However, a lot of the writers that I know, spoken word performers, are a bit introverted, and that sounds like maybe just one way. I can't think of anything offhand that gets you there. And that might not necessarily, Mortal Kombat among poets might not be the poet's preferred way to get noticed. Some people don't create well under that guise of the blood sport kind of my poem versus your poem. Well, you could argue, well, in comedy circles, this joke is funnier than that joke, or this singer is better than that singer, or that rapper is better than this rapper. Battle rap, it's a blood sport. If you're not fit for the war, then get out of it. But how many, I guess, poetry slam events are accessible? And poetry seems a bit more subjective to who you're getting into. It just seems to me at the infrastructure seems to be is there to a point, but it's not necessarily the infrastructure of the other three I aforementioned. Also, I think poets may or may not be a little naive to how things work. I mean, we learn as we go in many things, right? No one really taught us, especially in hip hop per se, because hip hop is is pretty young. You know what I mean? Hip hop wasn't even around when I was born, and hip hop kind of followed shortly thereafter. You know what I mean? I'm 5 or 6, and the guys is starting the Sugar Hill Gang things in the park and whatnot. So, but let's stay on message, okay? In the 1930s, there was this Renaissance period where in Harlem, New York, a lot of black literary types, militant, dare I say nationalist types, started this whole wave of blacks speaking out, and which we can still feel the ripples of that movement in modern poetry today. However, there's a small problem. Okay, it is very hard for a poet to monetize. It's hard for any artist actually to monetize their talent to get a paycheck. You know what I mean? You know, and a lot of people may say, well, why would I pay for a poetry album when I can go to a coffee house or open mic and get this poetry for free? Okay, so how did that start? Well, what I tried to do, and I noticed running my own poetry venues, that it indeed was difficult to monetize that. You know, it's not that people weren't willing to pay for an open mic. but it was just different. It was a difficult thing for me to market for a number of reasons, okay? I'm not going to stay on this topic long, but I do want to say this. At some point, open mics per se were let inside the restaurants and coffee houses because Monday through Friday, when that restaurant and or coffee house was slow, they needed business. They did a lot of business on Saturday and Sunday, not a lot of business Monday through Friday or Monday through Thursday. So insert the open mic. We give you a platform, which is our coffee house or restaurant. You guys come in, you perform your poetry, and the people that come in, hopefully they buy music and drink, right? This was really accentuated after the housing crisis, after people started tightening their belts or whatever, and people were just like, you know what, we just really can't afford to just spend a whole bunch of money going out. You know what I mean? Going out to a play, going out to the movies, or going to a show. However, we can go to our favorite restaurant or favorite open mic spot and get a meal, a drink, and a free show. So the poets of the day were really helping restaurants out. But this kind of was leading a little bit towards exploitation. So if you were not necessarily a poet that was looking to translate your talent into money, which I don't really know any poet that doesn't dream at least of having a bestseller of a book of their own poetry, perhaps. But let's say you were a poet that only wrote on those rare occasions when inspiration hits you, right? And you weren't really looking for the money get back, then going to your favorite open mic spot once in every few months or whatever, this might have been appealing to you. But it might have been confusing for a very dedicated, serious creator type writer, female or male, that was looking to parlay this. And like, you know, I've been doing all of these things for free. Why can't poetry be turned into money? Well, it was already hard from the gate, right? But having the infrastructure set up like this, you know what I mean, really led a lot of younger poets to believe that their art didn't have any motherfucking value. As an artist slash promoter, I try to give the power back to the people. Say, hey, everybody, we could move out of the restaurant, okay? And we could just have our own just venue, and we could do it like that. Well, there's a problem. You know what I mean? Because the infrastructure as it is may like things the way they were. You know what I mean? Anytime you start talking about possibly doing something a different way, right or wrong, even if that way may help the community in which you're trying to expand, change is difficult for some people. The poetry dilemma. I would love to know your thoughts. I'm just saying a few things. Basically, all I ever try to do is elevate us. And for the people that have subscribed to this channel, thank you very much. For the people who have yet to subscribe, please hit that like, subscribe button and share. And I would love to know your thoughts in the comment section if there are any artists of any kind, specifically poets, that have come to this realization that maybe it's time for us to organize. Maybe it's time for us to look at our art with a bit more prestige and know its true value. Then I am with any ideas, or maybe everything I said in this blog you actually disagree with, and tell me your thoughts too in a civil way. Don't be all hateful in the comments, please. But do share.